Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today we are on episode 41. God, I can't believe it's 41. So I am Kim from Kim's Wellness Space over on Instagram. If this is your first time listening to the pod, welcome. Hope you enjoy it. There's loads more content. I've chatted to some amazing people this year, so please go back and have a listen. And today I am talking with Siri. So we'll get her into the studio. And while I'm doing that, I just want to explain that I am in North Cyprus, Siri is in Mexico, and so we are truly international today. And so if there's any sound strangeness, this is why, but stick with us because I know it's going to be a good conversation. So welcome, Siri.
Oh, thank you, Kim. It's really lovely to be here, and it is a little chaotic around me with noises. So I hope that's going to be, accessible.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. And you know, this is real life, isn't it? So that's what it's all about. So we don't mind the strange noises. So before we kind of really get into the good stuff of our conversation, Siri actually is a yoga therapist. I've already spoken to yoga teachers. So Siri, can you just explain to everyone that's listening what the difference is between a therapist and just a teacher?
Oh, yeah, sure. There's a big difference, and it's quite a comprehensive, I suppose, quite a deep dive answer. So let me just think about simplifying it. First of all, it was a long, arduous academic study to get to where I am from 20 years of being a yoga teacher. Yes, so being a therapist I'm a therapist now, like certified therapist, which comes with a lot more information and knowledge grounded in my training. It was grounded in a medical model, and then like overpinning yoga philosophy and obviously all the components of yoga, but also like deep diving into mental health conditions on a physiological, anatomical, and neuroscience kind of, it's like a really big deep dive. So we have a lot more capacity to prescribe yoga
Yes.
with regards to mental health conditions.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for that. So, and I just want to go back and say, I was very aware as I said it that I said just yoga teachers, and I don't want to upset yoga teachers. We're not just, obviously, we also put a lot of training in, but you have more layers and more levels to offer us, which is amazing. So I know that our conversation is going to be really deep today, and I know we only have a certain amount of time to talk. So I'm going to try and take a backseat and not say too much and just really let you chat. Oh, that's beautiful, Pussycat. Because I know that you have a story to tell and share, and your words are really important. And it's my privilege to be able to have you on today and to share those words. So I'm going to let you just start talking where you think it is appropriate to start, and keep going until you feel like you've said everything that you want to share with us today.
Oh, okay. I must say, Kim, this is a story I haven't really told yet because it's in process. So it might be a bit clumsy, and that's totally fine. I kind of think that at the end of this year, I will take some time to write about my experience this year. But I guess the story I want to tell that's relevant to your work is my kind of complete dissolution of the nest. Like, it's not empty nesting. There just like is no nest. And so my personal year, this cat is like really, this is Oliver. Oliver has adopted us, and because there's no like separation between the inside and the outside of this building, it's a free for all. So my story this year ties in with menopause, chaos, giving up a home, yoga, lifelines, all of the things that I think are so so pertinent to women
Yes.
at the stage of my life. I'm 53. So it started over a year ago. My children, I'm a single parent, 17 years of single parenting, 2 beautiful kids, and they are now 22 and 20. And I guess post-COVID, I never recovered financially, and I just couldn't sustain keeping a home for us. Not for me, not for them, not for our dog. So we prepared for the 3 of us to like disband the home, and we prepared for a good year. So I, got my son like able to cook and shop and figure things out. He's my youngest. My daughter has been pretty independent since she was 19. And then the day came where we left, and my daughter, it was first my son, he moved to Bristol to uni and had to go lock, stock and barrel. And then my daughter moved to Mexico, which is where I'm visiting now. And then a month later, I moved from Berkshire, where we had lived for 17 years, to no home. And I started this year on top of kind of having to process all of that. I decided to take a year off my work as a yoga therapist and a ceremonialist and a parent and write probably the biggest project I've ever written.
Yeah.
So I took like some kind of sabbatical and gave away paying rent and gave away, like all those normal expenses and really simplified my life. So that started with 6 months in Dorset, in Swanage, where a friend had kind of given me their second home at a very, very low rental, which enabled me to do what I wanted to do. When I completely fell apart, totally exacerbated all of my menopause symptoms, like off the scale, and fell apart, went into deep grieving, spent hours walking rocks and coves and beaches with my dog, missed my home, my friends, my familiarity, was totally isolated, didn't know a soul in this town. And spent those 6 months researching, lying on the sofa with my dog on top of me, reading research papers for my program, which is a mental health, and nature-inspired well-being program for adolescents. Covering, kind of mitigating mental health conditions. So, that was my first 6 months. And I think I'm going to continue to give you like an overview of my year, and then maybe we can go into parts of it, because it's, I'm kind of in the flow of the trajectory of the year. So first 6 months was that, like, was intense. And I noticed my menopause symptoms, where before I was managing them through like, all the things, all the natural things. They were out of control. And that's when I started to get help. A friend of mine said to me one day, Siri, I think you maybe need some help, like, don't do this on your own, which is what I'm used to. And I started looking for support, found an extraordinary acupuncturist, found a little bit of community. But it was a rough 6 months, but also like the biggest gift of the grieving and the kind of mental health crisis that I follow in adolescence was like literally tearing my heart apart. So I was grieving, I was missing my kids, I was crying a lot. And then I was like mobilized by this heartbreak of like the whole world falling apart, and adolescents, which are my passion, just dropping off the face of the earth, like pretty rapidly. So it was all tied in, this kind of real heartbreak. And then my 6 months came to an end, and I had to pivot, and I moved in with a family. So really good friend offered me a room in their house for 4 months over the summer period in Cornwall, North Cornwall. So I had to kind of pack up my home, that temporary home, and then move from Swanage to Cornwall, and then embed myself in a family from isolation, from absolute like loneliness, to just being part of this beautiful, rich tapestry of three extraordinary, beautiful people. My goddaughter, really good friend, and her husband. Actually, my very good friend is also my business partner. So we had 4 months together. But that had its own trials and tribulations. I had to rehome my dog, which was like, I don't know, like the final straw of letting go of the children, the home, and then my dog.
Yeah.
That really was intense. But I rehomed her temporarily. And I still, she's still being rehomed. And then I settled, adapted like a chameleon into this different setup, and
Yeah.
having to juggle all of the intensity and also still write my program. So I was still trying to carve out time in the day to write. So I spent 4 months there working, kind of like living with them, but also working, helping them run their exquisite retreat space.
Yeah.
Airbnb, so cleaning and like missioning and washing and just having a beautiful time with this family, rich conversation over meals. And I was so happy to be like back around a table. And it was around that time that I did start addressing my menopause symptoms, like much more, with a lot more vigor, like a lot more like I need help and this needs to be like sorted. And I made big lifestyle changes. I quit alcohol, sugar, like on the 1st of July, and just really looking at ways to fix what felt like so messed up inside of me. And then after that, I left Cornwall and I came to Mexico.
Amazing.
I reunited with my daughter, and the night before I came to Mexico, I had a night with my son in Bristol, which was just like a very close family, and that was really beautiful. And all my menopause symptoms have been sorted, and I'm really happy. I fell in love. I met a man. It's been an extraordinary, like, absolute dissolution of the nest. Like I keep thinking about, we didn't fly the nest. My nest isn't empty. We just like gave it away, we just, sorry, the light's not great. We just, we literally like jumped out the nest, and then it's almost like those pieces of stick and straw and hair from the nest was like taken apart and put back in the earth.
Yes.
And then with that, my children learned to fend for themselves. And I feel like I'm becoming a woman who is not a mother, like own mother.
Yeah.
So, I'm full of like joy. I'm very content. I'm really excited. I've got lots of energy. I feel like I'm like out the tunnel, And,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's my story. It's not over yet because I leave Mexico in a couple of days. I spend a week with my brother in California, and then I fly to South Africa to finish this year in South Africa and wrap up my program. I've written like 25,000 words this year. So yeah, that's my story. And I'm just going to try and put my website, my email off so it doesn't ping.
That's amazing. And I know you just said very kind of it's not flippant, I know, but very like, and there you go, that's my year. But actually, oh my God, there's so much in that year. And just that first 6 months, you must have felt like you'd lived a lifetime just in that 6 months, because grieving, it does so much for us, and we lose so much, but we gain a lot as well. We kind of release to have space for new things to come in, don't we? So saying that, that was the first 6 months. That's a whole lifetime in a 6 months, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, there was nothing. That kind of précis of my last year was flippant, and I'm not grieving now. Otherwise, I would be crying and I would be like sniveling but every step of the way was just so. I'm also like an embodiment therapist, so. Every part of it was felt, every part of the pain was felt in my body, in my bones, my heart, in that in that kind of heartbreak. And that's where I started to get support, because I knew I couldn't hold it, you know, like I was going to fall apart. And when I found this incredible acupuncturist, like I knew when I found him, because I've had a lot of alternative treatments in my life.
Yeah.
I knew when I found this person, I was like, I'd hit the jackpot, you know, like old school, a lifetime of mastering his craft.
Yeah.
I was in such safe hands, and he literally held me for about the 5 months, I think, of Swanage. He literally held me in those sessions and beyond those sessions. And I needed that. I needed someone to just be like, we've got this, you know, we can like put these pieces back together. And I remember the first time I went to see him, he did like a whole assessment on me, and he just said to me afterwards, good, it just really like hit me so hard. He said something he was very eloquent and he used very few words, but he said something along the lines of, you have come so far away from yourself. Like you have, like, there is this like, kind of like a gap between you, your body, and like your beingness, you know. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, that's what I do for a living. I help people integrate their parts, you know. I help people be in their body. And I was just like, how has that happened to me, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, is there any like chance of putting me back together? And he was like, totally, you know, like, but he was like, you have to stop with the food, you have to stop with the sugar, like you have to stop reaching out, but like, you know, for comfort. So I did a massive piece about like emotional eating and reaching for alcohol, because it's like in my family, you know. Yeah, I had to address everything. It was kind of like make or break. I was either going to be like, okay, well, my life is hard right now. It has been for a long time, so I'll accept that. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to repair. So yeah, it was a tough time in Swanage.
Yeah, absolutely. But how amazing, and how it just shows how resilient as humans we are, doesn't it? And you know, there is always a glimmer of light. There is, if we can look, if we can find the space to look, there is always someone with a hand open saying, come this way, I'll help you, which is so lovely in this world that is, if we believe what we are shown is so horrible. Actually, there's so much love and there's so much nice stuff going on and really good people. And I think we need to remember that and hold on to that, don't we?
Yeah, and I think, Kim, you're absolutely right. And like, I think for me, I am often that person, you know. I was that person solely for my children for like 23 years. And as a therapist and as a ceremonialist and as like, I am the one who is holding, and I work really hard to like hold that really safe, embodied, integral space.
Yeah.
And when I went to Swanage and I was so isolated, like not knowing a soul in a town, like, is really interesting. I mean, like, I'm really independent and kind of capable, but that doesn't make it easier to feel so isolated. And then when I met Alan, and I could just like be in this person's hand, literally in his hands, like I almost like allowed myself to fall apart, you know.
Yeah.
And to surrender to the process. But having him, you know, like, I haven't been in a relationship for like such a long time. I haven't had a person who's got my back. Like, you know, society in the way that we live can be very geared towards individualism and stoicism. And I was like the master of that. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And like seeing him and hearing the words that he spoke to me and feeling the needles he put in me. He would put like one needle in me. One needle. Like, I remember this one time he put a needle just here, and I cried for like 40 minutes. And then I went home and I cried for 2 weeks. One needle in my sternum, you know, and I just knew I was unraveling so that I could be rebuilt. But being held by that man, like, he was an absolute angel. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Amazing. And also really interesting that you were able to recognize that your menopause symptoms were getting worse. And I know, because we've already spoken before, that was a direct result of the stresses that you were living through, that fight and flight that you were going. And it's really apparent this year from all the people that I've spoken to how there's not enough information out in the world still about menopause. And there's so many women that don't make that connection, that I'm so pleased that I think nearly every single person that I've spoken to this year has at some point said, oh God, and my menopause symptoms were really bad because I was really stressed. So, it's really good that we can keep sharing this, because the knowledge just is still not out there for us, is it?
Yeah. And I'd love to just tell you like a little story that happened around my understanding of that. Was like the day before I left Berkshire, I was running, I had like packed the whole house up, put whatever. It was just like a family home I had to put to bed.
Yeah.
And I was so stressed. I was like trying to do all the stuff I needed to do, like sort my car out, like sort my dog out, sort the house out, before I didn't have a home or a base or a security. And I had like set aside 40 minutes to meet someone for coffee and hand over like all my herbs and my like witchy stuff, because I couldn't take the stuff with me.
Yeah.
And I ran into this coffee shop, and I went to hug her, and I got like a whiff of this odor, and it just knocked me. And as I went to hug Stella, I was like, oh my God, like is that me? Like, is that smell coming from me? It was such a foreign smell. And I was like shamed, I was like embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, please don't hug me. Like, I really, really smell. And as like I spent years studying physiology, I was like, that is a cortisol, that is not a smell I know on my body, like.
Yeah.
And then I moved. The next day I drove to Swanage, and the smell didn't go away. And I was so like consumed by it, I'm like, how can I have this smell? It's so bad. And it was like it was like my armpits, but it was coming from my body. And I was like, this is stress. It's now hit like an acute state, and I'm cortisol, like pushing cortisol. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what to do. And then my friend, who also told me I needed help, like get support, she came to visit me, and she said, get in the cold water. It was January the 8th. And she said, get in the water, like get in the water. And her and I had spent the last year swimming wild together in Berkshire. And I was like, I don't really want it. It's really cold and it's the sea. And anyway, I did. And I went into the water, my first kind of cold plunge in Swanage. And I went into the sea, and it was freezing. And I just like felt like a baptism,
Yeah.
I just like got into the water. It was absolutely freezing. I was just like in a costume. And, I came home and I showered, and the smell went away. The smell, and if I didn't swim 3 times a week, the smell came back.
Okay.
It took me like 2 or 3 weeks to figure that out, and then it was gone. So I restored the balance of my hormones from the stress by cold water swimming.
Yeah.
And when I started seeing the acupuncturist, he was like, you have to just keep doing the cold water swimming, like keep doing it. It's important. Get your whole body in, get your head in, everything.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, putting the pieces together, knowing this is not normal. I've pushed all the levels to their max. I need to restore. Yoga wasn't doing it. Breath wasn't doing it. Meditation wasn't doing it. But the cold water did it. And then I could bring the stress levels down, and like restore the balance of my hormones through the cold water swimming.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm really grateful that I had the capacity to track all the pieces, and figure out, and then notice straight away, hold on, when I swim, the smell goes away. If I don't swim, it comes back. But then after a month, it didn't ever come back. So.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And so fortunate that you had the knowledge that you had, and you had the time and the space to kind of make that connection. I know that a lot of women that are busy mums holding down jobs, they don't have that space to just pause and saying, hang on, what's going on here? And, if they go to their GP, they're either misdiagnosed with antidepressants or encouraged to take HRT, which for me, it's not a thing, but I know some people it does really help. And I'm not dissing it at all. Like, if it works for you, then amazing. But I think it's sad that that's the first thing that's handed over. I think, it would be, in an ideal world, it would be lovely if there were other options given to try before the HRT tablet is brought out.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to talk about the HRT piece, because I think this is something that I really want to speak about. If you're open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I've raised 2 children on natural remedies and, Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and acupuncture and homeopathy. And but when I spent that time in Swanage, when I was seeing Alan, the acupuncturist, it was tough, it was a rough ride. And I had all the menopause symptoms, like perimenopause, I managed naturally. Menopause, I'm out. I've been without bleeding for 2 years,
Right.
maybe more than 2 years. But it was the stress that kicked it out of management.
Yeah.
And halfway through my time seeing Alan, he said to me, Siri, given how much you're holding, the stress, financial problems, not having the home, getting used to not being with your kids, being isolated, not knowing this town, not knowing what your future holds, all the uncertainty. He said, I'm going to actually advise you to consider a bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And he said, I don't advise that. I don't recommend medicine,
Yeah.
And like I said, he was a man of very few words. And I listened and I was like, absolutely not, I absolutely do not do allopathic medicine.
Yeah.
But when month after month after month, I started eliminating all the stuff, doing all the things, when I wasn't drinking anymore, I wasn't having sugar. And still I was having these quite strong symptoms. And also feeling sometimes quite emotionally out of control,
Yeah.
When I left Cornwall, I went to say goodbye to him and had my last session. Swanage, had my last session with him. He said to me, just a reminder, you can always have the conversation. You don't have to be living in your area of your GP practice. Just pick up the phone and phone your GP.
Yeah.
So I did. And it was literally what you say. It was a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Not even. I think 4.5 minutes. And I got off the phone and I felt like someone had just smacked me 100 times, and I was texted a prescription.
Yeah.
And I was literally horrified. And I said to the doctor when she said, okay, well, we're done here. I was like, no, I didn't want a prescription. I wanted to ask you advice. I wanted a conversation. I want to be informed. I do not know anything about this stuff,
Yeah.
But anyway, I got the prescription, and that's where my journey began. And I was literally I'm not doing it like this,
Yeah.
And I found a menopause coach, and he was actually someone that trained with me years ago. And but, not in menopause, but in yoga for children. And she started to advise me strongly. But it took a tussle. I had to fight, I had to fight.
Yeah.
Had to wait another month to get another phone call with the doctor. And then when I got the doctor on the phone, I was like, I don't want those products. I do not want anything that's made with those ingredients. I only want these ingredients. I only want something that's made from a yam or soy. And I don't want anything else. Is there
Yeah.
any way you can help me? I can honestly tell you I got bullied. Like, promise, I was like, took a call one day with her that made me shake. Like, because I had to advocate for myself, but I didn't really know what I was talking about. And I was like on the phone to her at a cafe in Cornwall, trying to scroll through my phone to get the information from my menopause coach.
Yeah.
My heartbeat was like, I was so stressed. She was so rude. And she kept saying like things like, oh, menopause coaches, you know, you just take a little weekend course and you think you know everything. I was like, oh my God. Anyway, in the end of that call, which was 10 minutes, at the end of all of that, I said to her, thank you so much for your time. Can you prescribe these two products for me? These are the ones I want. It's estradiol and it's this. It's like I knew exactly what I wanted only because Sarah had told me.
Yeah.
And she agreed. She just said, well, I'll see what I can do. And then she updated my script. And then there was another piece which was boring, but like there was another piece where I had to call her back and say, I don't like the patch, it doesn't work on my skin, I need the gel. And she was like, basically you are trouble and we are not having another conversation. And you are now, I'm going to stop your prescription and you are now going to come on a course at the surgery. And I said, I don't live anywhere near the surgery. She said, well then, you know, tough. And that was the end, right?
Yeah.
But I continued with the two products, and then I had another call with another doctor, and she was like, no problem, I'll prescribe you the gel. So I use a little estradiol gel on my thigh every day and a little pill at night, the progesterone. Honestly, it's one of those stories where you're like, I feel like a different person.
Yeah.
Like, I did all the things, I do all the good stuff. I don't drink, I don't have sugar, you know, I live a really healthy life, and I'm taking these bioidentical HRT products, and I feel freaking amazing. And I don't have any of the symptoms, none of them.
Amazing.
So I like, for me, the moral of the story is like, get someone to advocate for you and read as much as you can. Like, I had to really read, like really, really, really do the research. And also, like, for me, I had to say, don't say no to this just because you don't do allopathic medicine, because you are like literally falling to pieces.
Yeah.
So I think it wasn't everything, but I had done everything and still I was struggling.
Yes.
And I think these two products are just like improving my quality of life. So
yeah, and that's amazing. And that's what it's about, isn't it? But at least you were able to try different things and you were in control of what was going on. But, you know, gosh, to have to fight that hard, it shouldn't really be that difficult, should it?
No, it shouldn't. And I also don't think the average woman would actually be able to do that, because
No.
it made me really scared. I went into a stress response, you know, I was in sympathetic arousal, like on the phone.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, like, my menopause coach said to me, Siri, not the average person, like a woman who isn't informed is not going to advocate for themselves like that. Like,
Yeah.
so they would just get what they are given. And there are some products out there that are awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's really sad. It really breaks my heart that people, like, more and more menopause coaches, we want more and more.
Yeah.
And then like sisterhood circles. I saw you are looking to put something together. Like, I've always held women's circles, like, where people can talk about this and inform one another and say it's okay. Like, if you get into a situation where you need someone else to help you on a phone call, or someone to come to the doctor with you, take a friend to the doctor with you, you know, so that you don't lose your courage at the last minute.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And also because when we're suffering with all those different symptoms, we are actually at quite a low place. So we don't have that much fight in us, do we? Because we're fighting just to, you know, do the normal things like get up and get dressed.
Exactly.
You know, that sometimes that can be too hard, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I actually had a conversation with my son last week exactly about being tired in the menopause, because he was saying, well, I work, I'm really tired. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. But when you have tiredness from menopause, it's just so different from the normal tired, isn't it? And I said to him, I could literally go to sleep and sleep for 72 hours, and when I wake up, I am still exhausted. To open my eyes is still hard. That's not tired from, just that. It's not his fault. He's been around me a long time. I'm always talking about it. It's not like he doesn't know, but you have to experience it to understand it, don't you?
Yeah, and I must say that I would never have fully comprehended that bone weary fatigue had I not experienced it. Like, I don't think you can explain, pardon me, it to anybody. Like, the way I would describe it is like, because I have a dog, I would walk her, and there were times that I would go for months that I would feel like my bones were made from lead, and I would be dragging my feet through the forest, like, and just asking like myself, how long do I have to walk her? Because all I want to do is lie on the sofa. And like, almost like it drains all the vitality out of you, like your vital force. Like, no matter how well I ate, no matter how well I slept, which I wasn't sleeping well at all, I was just like drained of all life force. And I like, now that I don't have it, I'm like, wow, like that for like, I'd say a good year or 2 years on and off. And in perimenopause, I had it too, like on and off in perimenopause, like I had it too. But I don't think it's something you can even describe to someone who hasn't carried a body that has been impacted by that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's when it stops, then you're like, oh, God, that was bad. Because you do kind of think, oh, this is my normal. I'm just going to have to carry on and trudge through, and, it'll be fine. And then it passes and you're like, oh, that was really horrible, actually. And now I do feel so much better. Didn't realize how bad I was feeling.
Yeah. And I'm also writing a huge program, so that needs clarity, like precision, discipline, energy. And I mean, I was just like, I just felt depleted, all the time.
Yeah.
So to feel like, even if it's at night, I want to do an hour of writing, do 1,000 words. Like, I have the energy now. I don't have that bone weariness, which is just like, hallelujah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, so although you've had a really tough year and you've had so much going on, like this, it sounds like this part of the year is picking up and it's getting better. And obviously, wonderful time in Mexico. You've got South Africa to look forward to. What does 2024 hold for you?
Well, it's not fixed yet because I still don't have a home. And I'm kind of getting used to that. There's a real freedom in not having to go back to one particular place. But like, my hesitation, like my pause of thinking about what it holds is interesting, because I have not had a successful romantic relationship, like, in my life.
Right.
I have had a lot of success in other areas, particularly like parenting,
Yeah.
And with my work, like, having certified like 380 like amazing teachers around the world, like with Star Child, and I've had a lot of success, but like relational, absolute mess. And this year, the reason I'm mentioning this is not to say like I'm in this relationship. It's because this year, as I fell to pieces, when I put myself back together again, I've been rewriting a new story, like literally, like almost down to the cells of me.
Yeah.
And part of that story is to be in healthy reciprocal relationship with a partner.
Yeah.
And because I've never had it, and now I'm exploring with this extraordinary man, like finally I'm worthy enough to attract someone kind of on my wavelength.
Yeah.
Because of the work I've done this year. I feel like next year, with regards to partnership, I have no idea, but I'm just so excited of like how I will continue to write my story, So where I end up living, I have no idea, like how this relationship will like unravel, especially it seems though like I'm spending a lot of time out of the country.
Yeah.
Is really exciting for me. So when I look to next 2024, I see this like adventure and delight and, you know, like exploring something that I've never actually done properly before from this vantage point, from a place of feeling so embodied, so whole, so integrated, so present, so ready. So that's exciting. And work-wise, I will complete this right in South Africa. This Young and Wise is called. And I will launch it in April next year, which is my plan. If that happens, I don't know. This project's got a life of its own. But I hope to launch it in April next year, and I will be creating an in-person training, which is going to be, it's so exciting. It's elemental, it's nature connectedness, it's well-being. You know, it's going to be an amazing community of people coming together. So I'm going to launch that in April. And it will be April, May, June, July. It's a 4-month program. And then I'm going to do more travel. I'm going to come back to Mexico to see my beautiful daughter and spend time in South Africa because my mum, you know, I want to spend time with my mom and my sister. And yeah, but definitely I'm going to, 2024 will continue to have freedom. I don't want to find a permanent home yet. I don't want that kind of responsibility yet. And there's lots of adventure, there's lots of newness, and I'm going to continue like the threads of weaving. And I feel like as I weave these threads of my life, I'm also like unraveling, you know. There's quite a lot of story and myth around this, like the weaving the threads of life and somebody else unraveling it, you know.
Yeah. It sounds really exciting. I'm excited for you. It sounds like it's going to be brilliant. You'll have to come back on again at the sort of this time again next year, and we can catch up and see like how it all panned out for you.
Yeah, I really noticed like if this conversation was 6 months ago, you would have caught me in deep despair, like deep darkness, you know, deep shadow. I work with psychedelics as well. I did quite a lot of shadow work in the psychedelic world. But now I'm like out that darkness, and I'm kind of like I'm in emergence, you know. I'm in like butterfly mode, and then I think next year is going to be a lot like things will be more grounded and less moving parts, kind of maybe more stability, but still maintaining the adventure and the freedom, the wings, you know, the wings. And also just to continue writing the story that I want to write, because we all get to write our own story, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like break free of the shackles of whatever the conformity and society kind of puts upon us. We can actually break free from that if we have support and help and other good, solid women in our lives. And
amazing. Oh, thank you so much for chatting to me. So I've really enjoyed. I knew I was going to enjoy this chat. It's brilliant. Is there anything else that you want, like if people want to work with you, are they able to do that at the moment? Where can they find you?
So yes, I hold these like really amazing sessions online. They call it IMC, Intuitive Mentoring with Cacao. And that's quite a powerful container. I'm a strong ceremonialist and also a therapist. So I hold a pretty good space online. And so people can work with me from anywhere. And that is like a 90 to 120 minute session where we deep dive into all sorts of stuff. So people can bring anything, like anything. They need clarity on something. They've got a health condition. They want to do journey work. I do shamanic work in the ceremonial work. I do shamanic work. So there's the intuitive mentoring with cacao is what I do. And then I'm also a yoga therapist. So I work online with all again, like in a more kind of like clinical, but profoundly deep therapeutic container. So I can work with all, again, physical, like mental, emotional, spiritual issues. So in both of those capacities, somehow they weave together anyway. And then if anyone is interested in training as a spectacular children's yoga teacher, I have an online self-led training that has been trialed and tested, and I've been running it in person for 12 years, and it's beautiful. It's called Star Child. And the only place you really find me, because I don't have visible offerings of these things, but the children's yoga training is Shine with Siri, which is shinewithsiri.com, which is a platform I use.
Okay.
The ceremonial work is more word of mouth. You can find me on Instagram, Siriati on Instagram. And the therapy work also, I don't have a website or anything. I just work mostly word of mouth. So
yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, thank you. And I'll make sure that the website address and your Instagram handle is in the show notes so people can find you. But they can always reach out to me on Instagram and I can send them your way as well. That's okay. Oh, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been lovely. The time has just whizzed past, as always. It's brilliant.
It's been lovely to actually tell a bit of my story, because it's still so I'm still so in it, you know, and
absolutely.
And I don't really, like, only my close friends know the depth of what I've traveled, you know, the roads I've traveled this year. And I was just realizing that it was Sarah Caswell who actually recommended me to you.
Yes.
She was like, I want to hear a Siri story, because she's one of my certified teachers and good friend, and it's a nice link.
It is a nice link. Yeah, she's lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And hopefully people that are listening, you know, it might help somebody. It might give them hope if they're in a dark place. But it's always good to share our words. I think it's important.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me share them. There is one other small thing I do, which is free, and it's random, and it's only if people follow me on Instagram that they'll see it. But I'm very big into like elemental prayer. Like I pray with my body and with the earth and the elements.
Okay. Yeah.
And I run these like online prayer. I just randomly will put one up, and wherever I am in the world, I'll just do like a morning hour, and people attend, and it's beautiful. It's just free. I just do it because I love to like move my body in prayer with intent, healing for the planet, healing for myself, healing for others. So I do those too, and those people just pop in from all over the place, so it's always just like such a treat to hang out in that space. So
that sounds lovely.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I've really loved speaking to you from Mexico.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much to Siri, and thank you for listening to this week's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed that as much as I did. I will make sure that all the information that we chatted about is in the show notes. And I will speak to you all very soon.